My name is Megan, and I am a student here at Southern, and I'm a nursing major. When I first came to Southern, I struggled a lot. The way I grew up, there was a very negative religiosity, a very poor view of God, especially from my mom. My mom was very legalistic. There's the way she raised us to view God. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot, did you do your devotion? Did you pay your tithe? God's gonna run away from you if you mess up. That was something she would tell us all the time. Like if we ever said a bad word, God was gonna run away. He didn't want to be around sinners like us. And so in my mind, it's like, okay, God is a person who doesn't want his children to experience joy. He's a tyrant who wants me to be this puppet. When I first came to Southern, it was really hard because this is a very spiritual campus. And, we were required to get worship credit, so I was going to Vespers a lot more, and I did not feel close to God at all. And that's when I started slipping into this slow, and I'm realizing like now talking, my freshman year is when I started slipping down into like this deep and dark hole of just trying to push any idea of God out of my life. And so I started just pulling away. I stopped going to church, stopped praying, stopped trying to have any sort of devotion. And it was rough. After I finished my freshman year at Southern, I decided to go for a year abroad to Brazil because I am Brazilian. I wanted to improve my Portuguese, and I wanted just to also avoid finally entering the nursing program because I was scared. When I was in Brazil, I was really, that's when I started really wrestling with God. Like, all that just terrible anguish like in my heart. I started like talking to my boyfriend, and I started because my boyfriend Zane, he's very spiritual. I was scared to start talking to him about the things I was struggling with, like spiritually, because in my mind he was on such a higher spiritual level than I was, and I'm down here and I'm like, this person who's like even struggling to believe in the existence of a good God. And what Zane was seeing like God for how he is, a loving God, but I was so blinded in my pain and this like so stuck on the bad thoughts I was having of God that I couldn't even see the possibility of him being good. I came back to Southern after Brazil, and I was still struggling, and I was like, you know what? There are resources here, so I am going to go talk to the chaplain. So I decided to go talk to the chaplain. I was like, look, I don't know why you all are saying God is good, because he's not. And I was telling her like what my view of God was, and she told me something very significant that I think was one of the turning points for me. She said, Megan, if you are wanting to really discover who God is, if you're really wanting to experience this love you hear everyone talking about, if you really want to experience this peace you hear everyone talking about, you are going to have to let go of every notion of what you think God is and be open to learning a new image of God, the true image of God. We prayed together, and that's when I started praying again. I was like, okay, look. And I would write in my little book, I would write these prayers out to God, and I'd be like, I am struggling to know who you are, but I want to know who you are. So could you please help me to know who you are? Reveal yourself to me, because I want to know. I went to church one Saturday at Southern. The sermon was basically just talking about how intense God's love was for us. And he was like, I have to stay here. There is someone in here, and I know there's someone in here. I like God is telling me right now there's someone in here who is broken and who needs to come up here and receive God's love, who needs to come up here and receive his grace. And he says, and I am not going to give up on that soul, and God's not giving up on you either. And then I was sobbing there in my seat, and I was so scared, but I stood up and I went up there and it was the best decision of my life. It was just an amazing week that week because it finally clicked for me. I was like, oh my goodness, like God does love me. And that's it, plain and simple. He loves me.